Welcome back to GambleNGainz, everyone. I got my Red Sox hat on here for opening day, but we are talking hoops, and I have a breakdown of the Sweet 16 and the rest of the March Madness tournament. We will be taking a look at the schedule for our upcoming slate of games on Thursday and Friday. Next, we'll break down the 6 key criteria on the makeup of past champions to see if we can determine who will win it all this year. After that, we will be breaking down the current state of the bracket and the way I think this plays out, which will lead into our last segment of official plays for the weekend and a futures bet for national champion. So, we lead off the festivities Thursday night in what we all expect to be a high-scoring matchup between BYU and Alabama as we take a look at that total right there of 176.5. That is very high for college basketball, but we all know that Alabama can score in bunches, BYU can too, and that will be a really, really fun way to tip off the weekend in a high-scoring affair. Next, we move on to Florida and Maryland with a 7:39 Eastern tip-off. That impressive Crab 5. We'll see if they can pull off the upset against the Florida Gators. At 9:39 p.m., we will have the Duke Blue Devils and Arizona Wildcats. Duke, a pretty heavy favorite here at 9.5 points. Cooper Flagg has been sensational. Duke continues to be exceptional, and they will be battling a tough Arizona team who fought with Oregon until the wee hours on Monday morning. Capping off the night, we have Texas Tech and Arkansas, and we will look to see if good old Coach Cal can keep those Cinderella Hogs rolling. As we move along to Friday, we will open up with Ole Miss and Sparty in what the books think will be a very tight contest with a spread of just 2.5 right now. Kentucky and Tennessee tip next in an all-SEC affair featuring 2 really good teams and who many believe is a legit title contender in the Volunteers. The second group of games tips off at 9:39 with Auburn going up against the Maize and Blue of Michigan, looking for that upset as they continue to roll after that Big Ten tournament win. Finally, the Sweet 16 will be wrapping up with Houston and Purdue in a matchup many are writing in ink with Houston advancing, and the books seem to agree with that with not only a high spread, but also a low total. I'll get into that a little bit more later. Moving on to a higher level view of the bracket, we want to determine what makes a champion. So what goes into crowning a champion every year? You know, every year people are trying to find that Cinderella, but the reality is the vast majority of champions all meet the following 6 key criteria. And when I read these out, it's going to make a lot of sense. It indicates dominance all season long and even across seasons if you can meet all 6 metrics. Starting with the most overwhelming stat. The last 34 winners have all 34 have had more assists than turnovers. Number 2, 32 of the last 34 have had a coach who previously had coached in the Sweet 16. These exceptions are the UConn Huskies in 2014 and the UConn Huskies in 2023. Number 3, 28 of the last 29 have had at least 3 wins versus the top 10% of the RPI. The only exception here is going to be, once again, the 2023 UConn Huskies. As we look at number 4, I will repeat, all of the last 29 champions were top 75 in strength of schedule, including those pesky 2023 UConn Huskies. As we look at number 5, we have a couple of KenPom stats here now. 21 of 22 ranked in the top 20 of KenPom's offensive adjusted efficiency, with the exception being the 2014 UConn Huskies. And then finally at 6, another KenPom ranking, 21 of 22 have ranked in the top 20 of KenPom's defensive adjusted efficiency, with the outlier there being the 2021 Baylor Bears. So naturally, you're wondering, who does that leave us with? Who is left that has the ability to become a champion given those 6 key criteria? Well, first, we have the overwhelming favorite right now, the Duke Blue Devils, who are sitting at plus 285 to win the title. We have the Auburn Tigers at plus 540. we have the Houston Cougars at plus 480. Not real surprising to see 3 1 seeds right here. The last one might be a little bit surprising to some of you. It is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers at plus 1700. Now you're all asking, where is Florida? They do meet every statistical metric. However, their coach has not yet qualified because he has not coached in the Sweet 16. All right, so keeping those numbers that we just heard in the back of our mind, let's take a look at where we are in the bracket. Let's start in the top left with Auburn. Their path to the Final Four is going to be Michigan and then either Michigan State or Ole Miss. And I don't want to go out there and say it's ever easy to make the Final Four, but this appears to be the least treacherous path out there right now for any of the 1 seeds. Let's move down to that West region with Florida, and I think they're in for a test here with Maryland. Those Terps are playing really, really good basketball. They got 6 guys who can play really, really well, and anytime you have that in a tournament, it can be dangerous even for a Florida team. Now, this Florida team hasn't looked as sharp necessarily in the tournament as they have all year, failing to cover both games so far. And if they are able to advance versus Maryland, which I think that's going to be a closer game than some are expecting, they have to go up against either Tech or Arkansas. And both of those teams have coaches with a lot of big game experience. And as we noted before, Florida does not. Do they have the talent to win? Absolutely. But when you get this deep into the tournament, that experience can really start to matter. So it's not quite as perilous as some of the other regions. I don't love this setup for the Gators having to play a super talented team in Maryland and then go up against a coach with a ton of experience in either Texas Tech or Arkansas. As we move towards the East region, no surprise to really anyone, Duke feels primed to make a run here. So first, they are going to have to go up against Arizona. Arizona is going to be a tough out. After that, it's BYU or Bama. I'm going to say Bama has the talent through their offense, and they can cause problems for anyone in the country. They score a lot of points. They're scoring almost 90 points a game. But I'd rather be in Duke's position than in Houston's, which I'll get to in a moment. I think Duke is just a better overall team than Alabama, and they have the horses to score with Bama. And I don't know that Bama's defense is going to be quite good enough to keep Duke from winning. Duke's going to be able to get enough stops. Bama, not so much in a game against Duke. Houston starts off with a matchup against Purdue. Love that. That seems to be like the biggest lock of this round given the spread in total. So when you see a spread that high with a total that low, there's a correlation there with the sports book and a lot of the experts saying that Houston should really win this game. So as that spread goes up and the total comes down, those points become more and more valuable that you're either laying or taking, right? So for a sportsbook to offer a spread of 8 with a total in the low 30s indicates they're very confident in Houston winning this game. Covering, that's a 50-50 bet, right? Everybody knows covering is a 50-50 bet. However, when we look at who's actually going to win the game, everyone seems to be believing that it's going to be Houston. Now, assuming Houston advances, which this is March, so you never know, they get to go up against either Tennessee or Kentucky. And now you start to see that real problem with taking Tennessee, even at plus 1,700. Yes, they meet all the metrics, but look at this road that they have to go down, right? It's Kentucky, and then if they can get past Kentucky, it's Houston. So Houston and Tennessee, this is a problem when it comes to trying to bet either one of these teams to win the championship. Like, I think Tennessee can get the job done, and a 1 seed can go down here, but you're just asking a lot out of these teams. Now, let's revisit that previous graphic, and where does that leave us with our 4 options that we were looking at? So I finished on the last page with Tennessee, and I'm going to start with Tennessee here. You're just asking so much of them to win these next 4 games. They have Kentucky in an all-SEC matchup, always bad blood. That always can come up to a coin flip, followed by potential opponents of Houston, who is on that list right here. We have Duke, who is on the list right here. And then either Auburn or Florida, who meets all the criteria except for the coach. So you're asking Tennessee to beat 3 teams who meet all of the championship criteria in order for them to win. Given all of that information, despite the plus 1,700 juicy odds, which that caught my eye too, and I wanted to make it work with them, I just don't see the path to pick Tennessee here. You get down the line, they win a couple games, Auburn goes down, Florida goes down. Sure, we can revisit this, but as of this moment, we cannot take Tennessee. Houston, unfortunately, is going to be in a pretty similar boat to Tennessee, although they should have a little bit of a clearer path, at least to the Elite Eight, with that matchup against Purdue, as opposed to Tennessee's matchup with Kentucky. Again, a great team, but asking them to win 3 games, like we just mentioned, so they're going to have to go up against Tennessee, who's on this list, and then Duke, and then probably either Auburn on this list or Florida. Like, again, not on this list only because of the coach. So we're going to have to eliminate the Cougars there. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with Duke, and it leaves us with Auburn. And I went back and forth on this one a little bit, right? Because Duke has looked like the best team in the country, and they are priced accordingly at plus 285. That's almost half-ish of what Auburn is there at plus 540. And I think they have a really good shot at winning this tournament, and I can't fault anyone who would take them at this point. I myself have Duke winning in several brackets, and Flag looks healthy. The team is dominating as they should be. But despite all of that, the pick for me is going to have to be the Auburn Tigers. Auburn at plus 540, there's just too much value for me here. The Tigers not only hit all 6 of those key metrics that we discussed, but when we look at that bracket, it seems like they have the easiest path to the Final Four, and they wouldn't have to play Duke, Houston, or Tennessee until the national championship game. So if we're basing it off of what I had just looked at with Houston and Tennessee and how that's going to kind of be a little bit of a struggle, they are not going to have to play a team like Florida until the Final Four. And I'm not sure Florida's going to make the Final Four, which we'll get to that in a minute, but they wouldn't have to play Duke, Houston, or Tennessee because they're all on the other side of the bracket until the finals in what would essentially be a coin flip game. So you're looking at a pretty decent shot that Auburn's in the Final Four. You got them at plus 540. They may not even be going up against Florida. They could be a favorite. That could be a toss-up game versus Florida. And then you get them in another toss-up game versus Duke, Houston, or Tennessee. I really like that. And so that's what we're going to go with here. Futures bet, Auburn plus 540. As you can see, I made this futures bet at ProphetX. Novig did not have futures up at the time when I looked at this. So plus 540, I shopped around a couple different books. 540 was the best price that I could find, and we made that bet over at ProphetX. We have our national champion bet. So now let's look at the picks for the weekend. Both of them are actually going to be coming on Thursday. First, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide, minus 5.5. Plus 105. This was made over at ProphetX. This is one of the many reasons that I love playing at ProphetX, Novig. Sport Trade is another one. I don't have access in my state, but you should definitely be looking into this. These are betting exchanges where these lines can be super tight because you're betting against other people and not the sports book. So in this instance, I was able to get Alabama minus 5.5, and they were offering this just live on their site. It was plus 105. If you wanted the plus 5.5, it was lined at like minus 108 or something along those lines. But this was made at ProphetX at minus 5.5. I love Alabama in this game. BYU faltered down the stretch of their last game. Alabama has been getting stronger through their first 2 games. They struggled early against Robert Morris, but they came out and they handled business in game 2 last weekend. BYU did what they needed to do to get out of the first round and then nearly blew that lead against Wisconsin. My other bet, this one's a little juicy. We're going the Maryland Terrapins at plus 250 over the Florida Gators. I kind of alluded to this earlier. The Terps have looked really good through the tournament. The Gators have looked good, but not up to their 1 seed potential. Not up to what we know the Gators can be. So I'm taking Maryland here. They have that starting 5. And really that one bench spot. They really go about 6 deep, which can be dangerous in the tournament, but when you get into a 1-game setting, I like having those dominant players. Now, can you get burned with foul trouble? Yes. Over the course of a 6-game tournament, that will probably burn you at some point. I don't know that it actually burns them here against Florida. I really like what I've seen out of Maryland. Not loving what I see out of Florida. My head's kind of cutting it off on the screen here, but this bet was made over at Novig. So again, very similar to ProphetX. These guys operate as a betting exchange. You can get really good lines. I think the best line I saw at DraftKings or FanDuel for this was around plus 230. And if you had watched my last video, we did go over the first round matchups, and we were able to highlight the value of that extra 2 points here, that extra 3 points, especially when you're playing a money line underdog. If you can get an extra plus 20 points, right, you're betting $100, that's an extra $20 in your pocket if you are able to come out as the winner. So, official GambleNGainz picks for the Sweet 16, both coming on Thursday night. Alabama Crimson Tide minus 5.5 plus 105. Again, that bet was made over at ProphetX, and the Maryland Terrapins on the money line. That bet was made at Novig. All the lines I used today were from sports exchanges, Novig and ProphetX. Legal in 40 plus states, including Texas and California. They're able to be legal in these states because they operate as betting exchanges, not as sports books. This is peer-to-peer betting. This is like betting your friend $20, except they take the money and make sure you actually get paid instead of that flaky friend who doesn't pay out. Now, if you're interested in either one of these, please be sure to use my referral codes on screen right now. These also can be found in the description below. Thank you all for watching my Sweet 16 bracket breakdown. If you have any bets for this upcoming weekend of basketball, go ahead, drop them in the comments. Would love to see what you guys are doing out there. Also, if you want more of this type of content, go ahead and give a follow over on TikTok and over on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. That's all from me. Until next time, remember to bet smart and lift heavy.